All right, so I haven't done this before, so I'm gonna like talk about my top 10 favorite films of all time. And of course, it's bound to change. It's really difficult for me to choose. I chose these 10 for specific reasons. I'll explain why as we go along. So first is Hotel Rwanda. It stars Don Cheadle um, as a hotelier, and it's based on a true story of the Rwandan genocide, which occurred during the spring of 1994. The film documents Don Cheadle's character's effort to save the lives of his family and more than 1,000 other refugees by providing them shelter in the hotel that he manages. So, of course, the film explores genocide, political corruption, and the repercussions of violence. I never cry in films, but I cried watching this one. Hotel Rwanda is one of my favorite films of all time. Like, no matter what list I decide to do, it's always going to be there. Great acting, great accessible, emotional situations that even we, like a lot of viewers who may not be political refugees, could easily relate to because of the way the filmmaker makes everything accessible and relatable. It's just a really good, well made film. The Big Sick is one of my favorite romantic comedies, if not my favorite one, because the romantic comedy aspect is really good between the two leads, like the the two lovers, of course. But also I love how the film explores them as people too, like not just their hobbies or passions, but like their family life, like their culture, like where they come from. And it's really refreshing in a rom com film to really explore like the backstories of these two lovers like to such extent, and like their back the people who are in their background stories who are in the film, like they're also great characters. They're funny and like they're relatable, they're flawed. The Big Sick is, yeah, probably my favorite rom com of all time. All right, next up is City of God. This is a 2002 epic crime film that's in Spanish, released in Brazil. So it's a story adapted from the novel of the same name, written by Paulo Lins. It depicts the growth of organized crime in the Cidade de Deus, translated City of God, suburb in Rio de Janeiro, between the end of the 1960s and the beginning of the 1980s. And with the film's closure depicting the war between drug dealer Lil Z and vigilante turned criminal Knockout Ned. So, yeah, I guess like when I was watching this film, I was thinking of other crime, like syndicate films, sort of like The Godfather, for example, like popular kind of gangster films in the U.S. But I really think this is better, more elevated than those because it's just a much larger scope. Yet it's intimate that if because it just follows mainly these three people, but even like all the other characters that kind of come into the movie, like as the movie goes along, like more and more characters are thrown in, but I never get confused, I never get mixed up. The film does a good job of like setting the table when it comes, or setting the stage or table, whatever, when it comes to introducing new characters and what their role is in the story, and it's just really engaging, and beautifully filmed. And it's from 2002. Looks a bit dated, but I think that works because it does have that feel of like one of those older crime dramas from like 70s or 80s. If you're looking for that sort of like aesthetic or whatever, yeah. So that's City of God. Next up, 13 Assassins. Definitely not for everyone. It's one of my oddball picks. I really like this film. So the film ends with a 45-minute action sequence. Enough said. But anyway, before that though, like the whole like first half, I guess, or first like 2/3, 3/5 of the film is all set up. So it could potentially be boring, but I love the setup. Maybe almost much more than the final action set piece because we meet who the 13 assassins are. So basically, this story is about 13 samurai who get together in order to eliminate, by any means necessary, so like murdering, this ruthless dictator, like authoritarian figure who does like monstrous like atrocities to like those who are subjugated to him. Like he does whatever he wants, and a lot of it's like not good. I mean, like it's brutal, and this film is directed by a Japanese director, Takashi Miike. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Now I've seen some of his other movies. He's a very violent filmmaker. He makes a lot of violent movies. That was a weird phase in my life when I was looking through his filmography. But anyway, this is 13 Assassins is definitely his most mainstream accessible film for mainstream audiences. Like it's a very linear story, and the justice for and the justified reasons for the violence in the film like makes sense because these 13 samurai they just can't sit back and watch this guy just continually hurt and kill people just for his own amusement. I mean, yeah. So the story is set in 1844 towards the end of the Edo period. Yeah, and I like the way the film depicts Japanese culture, like with a lot of respect and the set design, the costumes. I'm just so intrigued by this world that's set up at the beginning of the film. And of course, it justifies the 45-minute action sequence at the end. You understand the stakes and all that. All right, next up is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Yeah, so I like the first one, Into the Spider-Verse. This is the sequel. But the sequel, this one, Across the Spider-Verse, is just like everything I liked about Into the Spider-Verse is better in this one. Like the drama, the stakes, the characters, the relationships, the colors, the visuals, the music, and like the abilities that like these super powered people have. And with animated films like this one, like it's so much easier, I think, to like visualize these fictional universes where these characters live. Like I think like this is definitely my favorite superhero film. I think 'cause an old traditional part of me still like can like thinks about like live action superhero films to be better than animated ones. But like if I'm to be like open minded, like this is a really good superhero film. If not one of the best ones ever. So anyway, yeah, that's Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Next up is the Peanut Butter Falcon. So some people have called this like a modern Mark Twain story. It's like an adventure story. It's lightweight storytelling. It's a feel good story, but there are still really mature elements in this film that the film does not shy away from at all. Like it's a good portrayal of like a sector of American like society and culture that I'm not really familiar with. This film is one of my favorite like American films when it comes to like America, like the American experience, and so that's the Peanut Butter Falcon. Really good movie. Yeah, so comedy, drama. Yeah. All right. Next up is Land of Gold. There's no Wikipedia page for it because it's a really small independent film. So I just went to the film's website. The Land of Gold is about this guy here. He's a trucker who, in the States, who finds like a girl, an immigrant refugee in the back of his truck, and he has to deal with it. Like, what does he do? Like, turn her in. Of course, he doesn't, right? But so it's just about the bond between these two, and also like the backstory of the main character, who is the truck driver. Like, you see his family in the States, what he's dealing with, and so this is a really small, intimate film. The stakes aren't that large of a scope, outside of like the immigrant who's with him and how he tries to deal with her or help her. But it's just a really small, good film. I remember when this film ended, I was thinking like, man, this is why I love movies. Like this is why we make movies. Like it's just a really good movie. And next up, Last King of Scotland. So this is based on Guy Fawkes' 1998 novel depicting the dictatorship of Ugandan President Amin through the perspective of Nick Garrigan, a fictional Scottish doctor. Yeah, so in this film, the doctor, Doc Nick, goes just to help out like poor people, kind of just like he's feeling helpful, I guess. But while he's in Uganda, he doesn't really realize his position of power or privilege, and he's careless with what he does in this country, and then he's noticed by the dictator Amin, and then Doc Nick becomes Amin's like advisor and personal doctor. But then that forces Doc Nick to not be ignorant of the horrendous atrocities that dictator Amin inflicts on his people. And then so yeah, Nick has to like mature, grow up, and figure out how to get out of the situation that he just put himself in. I think it's a great film when it comes to like, I don't know, especially as an American and being familiar with the mindset of Americans. I guess I don't know how to say this because I've been like to the Philippines. I've been to other like third world countries before, and like sort of like how privileged people could feel when they're going to a place where they know like people are poor. Like I mean, it's really bad. It's a bad mentality, but like this film, I think explores it to the most like violent extremes. No, not even that, but like realistic political extremes. That when it comes to that idea. So that's why I like this film. So for that reason, it's also a personal choice. But yeah, The Last King of Scotland is also a good like action film. Even if you're not into the sort of like the social commentariness of it, it's also a good tense, thrilling action film. So next up is Seven Prisoners. It's a Brazilian drama. So I assumed it was in Spanish. Yeah, in Spanish. So it's about this guy or this young man from the countryside in Brazil, and he goes to the city of Sao Paulo in order to find work, but instead he involuntarily becomes a slave. So this movie is about modern day slavery, and I love movies like this because like, a lot of people think slavery is in the past, it's gone. No, people are still forced to work when they don't want to, or and they don't have resources, they can't connect or be with people they want, do what they want. Like slavery still exists today, and this film also shows how the protagonist, like that young man, gets out of slavery, and you see the decisions he makes, whether they're ruthless, whether they're compassionate in order to help those around him, and also to help himself get out of the situation he's in. This is not the happiest film, obviously, in the world. It's very mature. But I'm glad a film like tackles a subject like modern day slavery and does it so well because the movie is just a well made story too. And last up, I got Brokeback Mountain. This is a really good like Romeo Juliet tragic romantic type of film. Like these two lovers can't be together because of the culture they're in, or for whatever reason they just can't. So that alone makes it a very compelling like romantic film. And it's also a neo western. Like these guys are cowboys. This film does a good job of portraying the hardships that modern cowboys have and how economically unviable that work can be in this day and age. With what we got with like tech and like other types of ways to make money and stuff. But it doesn't really like destroy cowboy culture. No, no, no. It just like reveals it in a way that I think a lot of people who think about cowboys, like who aren't familiar with cowboys, might not really know about cowboys. If that makes sense. And also the film explores like yeah their history with their female partners that on a surface level, social level, they're trying to be compatible with, because they can't be together. So it's like a yeah Romeo and Juliet kind of like sad story, but like it's sort of an epic western at the same time. It's a really unique type of film, and it's really good. So yeah, those are my top 10 for now. Definitely gonna change for sure because my mind changes all the time. Yeah, but just want to throw out a top 10, just to get an idea of like what I think are like some of the best films out there to watch if you're bored or something. So if any of that sound interesting, check it out. Until then, take it easy, y'all, and peace.